Hi. So, if you're here to learn about the 6 steps that I've used to build over 300 websites for my agency, then you're at the right place. So, now what are we going to cover? Well, buckle your seatbelts, put out the cigarette, no smoking on the plane. But here we're going to go through the 6 steps in detail and what they are, why it's important, and even show you some of the behind the scenes like tools that we use, some worksheets and processes that we like to follow to ensure that every step of the way is smooth, from takeoff to landing. So why, right? Why have the 6 steps? Well, it avoids delays, costly mistakes, losing customers, stress. Almost 12 years now that I've been running the agency. I've pretty much experienced everything, because I didn't have a polished 6 step going every step of the way, but being prepared for the next step and the next step, and then all the steps from setting expectations from the get-go. So it's just like kind of like this image, right? You wouldn't dive out of a plane or jump out of a plane without proper landing gear, right? Without at least a parachute and what to do. At least in this case, if it's your first time, don't jump out of a plane by yourself, right? Have resources, have someone with you so you can get some practice in. So now, without further ado, let's get started. 6 steps. Here are the 6 steps in all its glory. From proposal, discovery, design, development, deployment, and ongoing. Now this right here, the 6 steps, is primarily for custom websites. It can be done for more basic sites too. For other sites that are more templatized, then some of the processes, some of the steps would be an overkill, or some of the steps would already been done prior, and we're essentially kind of fast tracking through that step. So now let's get right into the proposal. So here's the proposal with the categories of the proposal, and I'm going to jump right into the proposal in a minute. And so you can see here, these are the categories: summary, deliverables, and process timeline, and website care plans, and so forth. So I'm going to just go ahead and just jump into a proposal template, kind of give you an idea what that looks like. So you can see here's the proposal template, same thing, each of the categories broken out into sections. So when our clients are looking at the proposal for the first time, it's really easily broken down. So for example, deliverables, this is where we put down project requirements, the site map, of course the URL that we're looking at, and any additional services that we're providing that's unique to this project. That we go into the process and the timeline. Here's our 6 steps, and then our estimated project timeline. So it really depends on when the project gets signed off. We just kind of give you a rough idea of, okay, based on the amount of pages, the duration, a rough estimate. The actual milestone and the exact timelines will be done, usually during the discovery phase, right? Because now we have a lot more data to determine what are limitations of certain maybe functionality or other pieces that might delay the project, or it might be different campaigns that might be trying to plan or working towards. So certain things might be moved up from a time on the timeline perspective, and then it might be delayed, right, based on these types of variables. Then the next area is just the website care plan. That's essentially our maintenance and hosting and essentially ongoing support and improvements to the site. We like to keep it simple based on the number of pages. It gets into enterprise when there's over 31 pages, but also when we have custom pricing, when certain sites have unique requirements, either server requirements, or it might be a high traffic type site that's really unique, even though it might not have a lot of pages, but it requires a lot of traffic being hit at a very short amount of time. Think of like a Black Friday special, or a special release, or a political site, right? So there might be influx, especially during campaign time. Client responsibilities, just setting expectations there, meeting timelines, copy, provide video, providing content, providing technical information, for us to be able to do our job. And investment, so we like to break it down into meetings, then design and development of pages, if there's any standard pages that we're working on. So like the more the homepage, we separate the homepage landing page from the basic pages. And the big difference between the two is landing pages, or essentially pages that have campaigns behind them. We spend a lot more time. They're usually much bigger than a regular typical, let's say, FAQ page. There may be a lot more work, well, obviously not more work, but more functionality on that page too. And the next piece is the legal piece. I'm not gonna bore everyone here in the video, but it's pretty boilerplate of just making a clear separation of what we're providing and what the client is receiving. So there's no like confusion, at the end. Some of the things like, okay, the payment, providing us copyrighted images, the intellectual property and the fair use and confidentiality, the non-compete, and then how to terminate, what if a lightning bolt hits the office, what's going to happen if it causes a delay. So there's certain things like that that is outlined in the legal piece. And then after that, once everything looks good to the client, they just digitally sign off and we're off on our way, right? So the project, partially is kicked off. And then after that, we send out an invoice for the first payment. And once that is received, then step 2 kicks in. So step 2, discovery. So in our discovery, this is initial research before the rest of the team meets with the client. We go through a brand and site audit, essentially looking at the design, the content, the consistency, the social media channels that they're using, and do their goals align? Are they all speaking the same message? Imagine like the website saying one thing and Facebook saying one thing, and their Twitter account or X is saying something else, right? It's just like, okay, it's not consistent. Even though yes, audiences might be different on different channels, but the branding should be consistent throughout. And then also we pre-fill the business worksheet. Then you might ask, hey, what the heck is the business worksheet? It looks like this, letting us know upfront who the decision makers are, who the third-party vendors are. If you've been working in the agency world long enough, I'm sure you've experienced this at one point. Like, oh, my so-and-so, it might be my significant other, my cousin, or it might be, one of the board members. They were part of the decision maker group, but they didn't share that with you until way far into the project. Problem with that is that it causes a lot more delays and issues at that time. So we like to bring that up front and center in the very beginning and say, all right, who are the decision makers? Who's going to be making the choices? Even if there's a small minor involvement, we want to know that they are part of this project and get them involved. And that's always part of our conversation. Like, hey, do we get so-and-so's approval? What do they think about that? And then understanding their vision, their mission, and their goals in the next 90 days. The theme or celebration are critical. Like what, if these metrics are met, what would the celebration be? The accountability, who's accountable for what? It might be the agency or us or the vendors that they're working with, or certain individuals that are responsible for certain areas. It might be, there's a person on our team that's responsible for getting all the photos, or there's a person on the team that's responsible collecting all the copy or sending us all the brochures and copy for that. So just making it very clear up front. And then we go into customer avatar. Who are we selling to? Right? Who's the client selling to? Just really getting a good understanding of that, because that will definitely affect the way we design our sites and the flow of content and the overall user experience and user interface. And the psychographic piece of the avatar, and then the competitors and the web content flow. This is actually related down the line for another worksheet. And what this will do, we'll get a much better understanding of, okay, what is your company best known for? What are the or the 5 main problems that you're trying to solve for your customer. Give us some testimonials. Give us some, do you have accreditations, certifications, and so forth. So we have all that. Another piece is the business snapshot, the financial piece, like the revenue, the profit margins, customer lifetime value. Now you might ask, well, you're just building a website. How is that relevant to that? Well, for example, if we're building, especially like an e-commerce site, but it could be any site, and we want to understand like, okay, what is your biggest revenue generator or profit margin? And we can help with that as part of the brainstorming session of like, hey, what should we put on the homepage? What should be front and center? Right? What should we put in the upper third? Right? And we can help with that and based on, okay, well, this is your biggest revenue generator. This is your highest profit margin piece. What do you think about offering this as front and center? So we can be part of that collaboration, because we have a much better understanding of the client's product or service that they're trying to offer. So this does play an important role. Same thing with marketing, understanding what type of marketing services they're currently using, like software and tools and processes that they're following. Because the site itself is more than just a billboard or a brochure, right? It can be part of operations. It can be part of HR. And from a marketing end, providing like understanding like, okay, well, they use a particular tool like ActiveCampaign or Go High Level or MailChimp. Well, then from a technical end, we know that we can integrate into those systems. So when someone fills out a contact form, that data can be fed right into those systems. That's all part of that. And that's our website worksheet that we pre-fill in the beginning based on what we see. Then we go into still step 2, the kickoff as part of discovery, introduction to our team, confirming the sitemap, overall website goals, what to do for each team, and then scheduling our next call. And after that call, we start doing the more research. So we collect the business worksheet right from the client, and then we build the avatar resume. What that looks like, well, it looks just like this. I'll pull it up into a larger view, and it just kind of goes into the little details of what that customer avatar looks like, and one of the responses that I get a lot is like, well, I don't know, the range is huge. Well, I get it. And one easy exercise to do is look at your current customer base. If you've been in business for a while now, at least a year, heck, if it can be even 6 months, you have a good sample size. Look at all your customers. Who are your top 3? Who do you want more of? What has been the best? And then what's patterns, similarities? And based off that, then you can start building that, right? And it doesn't mean you can't sell to anyone else. It just means that is your best customer avatar. We're going to spend our energy and efforts on attracting more of that. So we have that, and we have a mood board. Mood board is just inspiration our design team kind of puts together from different sites and say, hey, it would be cool if we have this effect or this design, and this is really relevant to a project, and kind of throw that together. And then once we have the research done, we start also collect the website copy. The website copy looks something like this. We have an example of each section of a site, and then the copy is dropped into here. Now, remember the worksheet of the web content flow? All that web content flow data here is actually matches this web copy framework. So we drop it into here, and then we start improving that copy based off this framework. Then we collect technical logins, and then we create a Google Drive for the client to upload, like a logo, brand guidelines, photos and videos, PDF files, and so forth. And then we also scheduled our next call, but also moving forward, we try to schedule some sort of cadence. So weekly or bi-weekly, we find that to be the most beneficial. But over time, as we work with some clients of ours, that it's not our first project with them, it might be the 5th, 6th, 10th project, then at that point we won't even need the weekly or bi-weekly calls. It would be more of, here's an update. Either we're communicating that through ClickUp, or we're communicating that through our Slack workspace channel that we share. So it just makes things a lot easier and just as efficiently. What we try to do is we try to avoid having meetings just to have meetings, and especially just having a meeting for another meeting, right? It's like, why waste everyone's time? We want to produce results as quickly as possible. Step 3 is the design part. So now we have all the research done. Now we get it right into the design. Design's broken up into 3 sections, 3 phases within design. We got wireframe, mock-up, and prototype. You can see the wireframe is like a blueprint frame of a house. The mock-up is when the walls are put up and the paint is applied. And then the prototype, you can think of it as the wiring and the plumbing is all there. You're testing though. So like what happens when you flip a switch on? Right? Does it pull the power from the breaker? Or when you flush the toilet or turn on the shower, does it pull hot water from the hot water tank in the basement to that room? It's the interaction between the different areas. I'll go in detail of the wireframe. So here's an example of a wireframe. You can see here, and this is all of our designs are built in Figma. And then here's an example of a mock-up. So these are just all mock-ups of different pages. They're not really interactive. What will happen is mock-up and prototype. Mock-up goes to prototype pretty quickly. So sometimes we might go straight to prototype right from wire. Now with brand guide, here's an example of what the brand guide looks like. It's to ensure and align our designers and our developers that these are the colors and these are the header sizes and the fonts that we're using, the logo variations that can be used, and the type of typography. So just make sure all pages and build out is consistent for that brand. And then finally, we have the prototype. So the prototype might look a little bit like the mock-up, but the difference is you can click on the pages and you can interact with the design, and it almost looks like the actual site, but it's still in Figma. We haven't written a line of code yet. So now we go into development. That's where we start writing the code. We always start off with the base WordPress. That's our content management system of choice, mostly requested by our agency partners. It is the most popular in the world. And then we have some vetted premium themes and plugins. So for example, we use Cadence themes as our premium theme, and then there's a bunch of plugins like Gravity Forms is one big one. If we need custom fields, it might be ACF. We use like Updraft for backing up and uploading the site. So just to name a few. And we have a whole like spreadsheet that we put together over the years, so we know like these are the vetted plugins, they work. We have a lot of confidence in that, because we're not just trying to build like a hobby site. We need a site that's very stable, because these are sites for businesses and they're investing a lot of money into it. They're running marketing campaigns, and we can't have a site that just breaks right in the middle of it. So stability, performance is very, very crucial. And then we go through a bunch of testing, from like reviewing the code, making sure it's coded properly, there's right comments and notations on the code, it's stored in the right area of the WordPress sites. For example, we like to use a snippets plugin to store our code rather than just throwing it in the standard PHP, like the themes.php area. Theme, making sure that's configured correctly, the plugins are configured correctly, performance of the site, security, the compatibility with different browsers and devices. We look at the front end and the back end of the site. So there's all these tests that we run through as we're going through the development. And then we go into deployment. We first confirm with the client, like this is our deployment, and then we send out the notices, like this is when the site will be launched. There will be some downtime during this time. Just verify the date and time. We verify we have access to the domain and hosting environments. And then we set up the production environment ahead of time. And then during the launch, we send notices again, the site's being launched, and when it is launched or had to be rolled back, we also send an announcement for that. And then here are just a few of the bullet points of what we go through during the setup, making sure the SSL, the DNS is configured, right? Setting up these like plugin settings. So there's a bunch of things that we go through on launch day to ensure a smooth launch. Okay, so now we go into post-launch. So the site's now launched. We run through some test cases, some front-end testing, some functionality testing, responsive testing, and plugins. Sometimes launching a site on the new server, the site might not look exactly the same as the development environment. And one of the main reasons is the caching, and we just need to make sure we clear the cache. So those little tests, but we still need to do the tests either way just to be safe. And then with that out of the way, we go into to ongoing. So finally, we're at step 6. And what is ongoing? It's the support. It's the strategy calls, it's the maintenance. And with support, there's a few ways that we handle support. We use what we call a rebranded ClickUp system called DSM Dash. It's essentially our ticketing system. Throughout the project, the client's already interacting with us on ClickUp, so they're familiar with the project management system. Then now the only difference is rather than interacting with us for the project, they're interacting with us on the site itself and then create tickets through that. Or they could always email us, could always jump on Zoom calls to go over more complex questions or issues. And then we have business strategy calls, usually either on a monthly or quarterly basis, or whenever they are prepping for a new campaign or they want to upgrade their site. We have our monthly maintenance. We provide weekly notifications. Here is an example of what that looks like, just to inform our clients like, hey, by the way, we're going to be updating your site this week, and we'll give you more details as we are working on your site. We try to maintain all the sites on the third Monday of every month. And then here's an example of a maintenance report. So here's a report that we send out, going over, here's a summary, some of the uptime, some of the WordPress updates, the plugin update, posts, changes to the site, and so forth. That's an example of our maintenance report. And there you have it. There's our 6 steps. We've been doing this for many, many years and constantly polishing and improving and adding more to these steps just so we can avoid costly mistakes and downtime and just providing a smooth takeoff and overall trip and then landing, which in this case would be a launch of a site and continuously maintaining that site. So I hope this has been valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And then if this has been helpful, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates and content like this. Have a nice day. See ya. Bye-bye.